All right, everyone, today is our last discussion day on Chapter 8, and our assignments are due today by midnight. So let me know if you're having any troubles or issues or questions. Just let me know. And today is basically a review day. I'm hoping that the problems that we're going to go through shouldn't, well, it'll at least take half, if not a little more than half of the class. So if you do need to finish up on any assignments, we certainly might have some time toward the end of the class. Our test will be next week, Tuesday then. You can take it at home. So again, Scouts Honor, you're doing it by yourself. Pardon?
If we get done early enough today, can we take it? Like, or like after class, like if we have our laptop?
If I were staying here, I would, but I'm
Okay.
not allowed to have you in here.
That's fine.
Why don't I do this? Since you can take it at home, if I made it available today, that would work. Then you'd have the weekend to do it if you wanted to do it this weekend, and not have to worry about it on Tuesday.
Mhm.
I will still be here Tuesday. Let's do that. I think I'm trying to be as flexible for your work schedules too, you know what I mean? Is that okay with everybody? So I'll make it available today. You don't have to take it today. You can take, or wait till Tuesday and take it, that's fine. And should be good to go. One more comment before on our schedule. Next week, Thursday, then I want to give you lots of paper. So if you can make it on Thursday, that would be awesome. You also will have your partner by that time. I've actually already picked them, so they're already ready to go. One group has a group of 3. Sydney, Brianna, and Allison. You are in a group of 3. You will have an extra component to yours. So, because you have one more member. So other than that, you'll be with a partner, one person. If you want to know, Chris, you're with Michaela. Sandy, you and Eric. Eric's online. Olivia and Miley, who's online here. And Carla, you have Liz, but you've never met Liz. She's online also usually. So you'll have to communicate. For those that are online, you'll have to communicate via email, basically. Okay. So those are the groups, and we'll talk. Your group members are right here under the group tab, so you can see yourself in there if you wish. Any questions so far? Are we good to go? Let's look then at our first problem today. Problem 53. We are basically going through all of the computations today. Make or buy, keep or drop, special order, and I forgot there's one more. We'll come across it. I'm trying to hit each one, and then we'll go from there if there's any questions. There's also a small review at the end. I like doing the review questions because there is some terminology. So again, a lot of students lose points on descriptive terminology type questions. So I like to do that as well. Okay, going back to problem 53 on page 443 of our book. Make or buy. And the information for problem 53 is actually on page 442. Lassingham, I think, is the company name. We're looking as to whether we should make it in-house or buy it from another source. So for the information, all fixed overhead is common. So basically, if that is the case, these then are irrelevant, right? So whether I make the item in-house or whether I purchase it from an outside supplier, those fixed costs remain. Whether I make or buy. The component. And that's, the author might say irrelevant, the author might say common, remains, the cost remains whether I make or buy. So look for those terminologies when we approach these problems. With that being said, then, what are irrelevant? Then we're looking at our variable costs. Direct materials, direct labor, variable overhead. I don't think there's anything else on this problem 53 that's considered relevant. So I'm going to put the dollar amounts, 6, 2, and $1.50. What is the purchase cost that we're looking at here? Problem 53. 11. So we're going to compare our costs to the 11, and that is the buy component. Liz, it's great to see you.
I got lost. I had no idea this classroom was back here. I was so used to all the business classes that
Yes.
being over on that side.
Right, yes. I think they do that intentionally for me, keep me away from the others. So just, it's totally a rumor though. Liz, I don't have a packet for you. Do you have your packet of questions?
I think I left it at home, but I can print one out on break.
Yeah, there's not really too much. Let's see how I do here too. Liz, I just told you that your partner is Carla. Next chapter. So there's Liz. It's good that she came in today. So we're going to compare these two column amounts, 950 to 11. And obviously, what should we do? Make it, right? Make is our best choice. Much cheaper, right? That's the goal here, is to determine which cost is the best for the company. Should we make it in-house or should we buy it from somewhere else? It does come up with a cute question, what would be the maximum price that they would be willing to pay? And your answer would be what?
$9.50.
The $9.50, right? Why would I buy it from someone else if it were over that $9.50? I can make it for $9.50, right? And then finally, question 3, which is very common on a lot of these questions. The author wants to know how much will it increase or decrease if we buy the part. If we bought it, is it an increase or a decrease from where we're sitting right now?
Decrease because it's larger.
It's larger, so it would be a decrease. Allison's right. So be careful with this question. Sometimes it'll say make instead of buy. So be careful, again, with wording, reading the problem. So in this case, if we buy it, it's going to be a decrease to our income. the difference in price is how much?
$1.50.
$1.50, right? So that $1.50 times how many parts?
Is it the 35,000 or?
I think we're still using that, yes, Carla. 35,000 units. Gives me how much? Oh, Miley's already got it, or Eric. Thanks for sharing, guys. 52, thanks Eric, 52,500, excellent. That's our answer for question 3. Okay. So watch the terminology: irrelevant, common. We'll do one more in our practice. Next problem I have on tap is a special order problem, problem 41. And I'm not actually going to use the table here, guys. I'm just going to go down below it. Is that on a separate page? Yeah. We certainly could go through and show the revenue. What's happening here in problem 41 is, again, we got to go to page 438 for the information on the previous page. Liz, how are you doing over there?
Good.
Have you found the problems?
Yep.
Do you have a piece of paper to write on?
Me? No.
No?
I'm just gonna print it. There's a printer right back there.
Yeah. Okay. You're not going to burn up your pens, are you?
Oh, I don't use it. Usually I use
Oh.
a printer at home. I just forgot it.
Okay. All right. So what's happening here is we're looking, we have some excess capacity. What does excess capacity mean, guys?
They need more, or no, they have more room.
We have more room to do stuff, right? To make more, right? So it's never a good thing when you see a machine not doing anything, right? If you walk through a factory. They have excess capacity. And the goal is to use that capacity up, right? Then we're making money. So what happens here is we have a customer outside of our normal customer range that's willing to sell us these. What are we making? Paperweights for $7 is the price. Yeah, I can't use this. We'll see how it goes here. We're going to compare that $7 to our relevant costs. And right here are the relevant costs associated with our production. In most cases, right, our variable costs are relevant. And you'll notice that in our materials section for problem 41, normally it's 310, but if you look at problem 41, we have an additional material cost of 20 cents because they want to attach a logo. So that's what we're adding here, is this logo material cost. So now we're up to $3.30 for materials, just adding the two together. Labor doesn't change at 2 1/4. There's no additional variable overhead at $1.15. label machine. How much is the label machine?
12.
$12,000, right? That's another cost. But now I've got per unit, per unit, per unit, per unit total. How can I convert that total to a per unit?
The 12,000 divided by 15,000 units.
Exactly, very good. 15,000 units is the requirement that this particular salesperson wants. So Liz, what is that unit number then?
80 cents per unit.
Excellent. Does that make sense for everyone? I don't want to multiply it all out and then add the total cost over on this side. I'm trying to avoid that. So on a per unit basis, what do I have? I have the 7 minus the 330 minus the 225 and the 115 and finally the 80 cents. Are my minuses more than my selling price? 5, 6, looks like I'm over 7. So I have a negative, how much? Anybody in cyber world?
50 cents.
Is that negative 50 cents? Eric's typing. Yep. Nope. 50, looks like we're getting 50. No, Eric said the same thing, so I think 50 is right, correct? Okay, good. So what would we do here? Would we accept the order, or, Miley sees the same thing, would we accept the order or reject it?
Sure.
In this case, reject the order. Very good. All problems in chapter 8 is really looking at the relevant costs, comparing it to the revenue, and deciding whether to accept or reject, basically. So this is a special order one with basically a fixed cost included, because that's relevant, because we can't do the job unless we buy this label machine, right? So that's what makes it relevant. If I don't do it, I don't have to buy the label machine. And that's the goal here. That's what makes it relevant to our decision here to process or not process. So good, okay? Any question? Okay, let's see if we can get a little harder then. Problem 47. Page 441 of our book. This time we have billings. So here they're making two products, a Reno and a Tahoe. So this is a constrained resource problem. How much, or product mix problem. This was the one I was trying to think of earlier. Product mix. How many of each do we make? And in this case, we're looking at 2. And the constraint here is the painting department. And they have a capacity of 2,460 hours per year. So we put that here. basically they're running one shift, right? And they first want to ask in question 1, so here's that terminology again. What is the contribution margin per painting hour? So how do I compute this? We have a Reno, we have a Tahoe. How do I get my margin per hour?
Divide the cost per 5 hours, so the 120 for Reno divided by 5 hours.
120 divided by 5, Liz?
Yeah.
And the 120 is what again, Liz? Not cost.
And the contribution margin?
The contribution margin. Just want to make sure we're using the right number here. That sounds great. That's perfect. What is that amount then?
$24 per hour.
Sandy, what about the Tahoe?
$75 for 3 hours.
Good, excellent. Excellent, very good. Does everybody agree? Which one would you do or make first? Tahoes. So when they're looking for the optimal mix, right? We always do the one with the largest margin per constraint. In this case, it's the Tahoe. We're making 25 per hour versus 24. So for question 2, I just gotta check. Michaela's already got the Tahoe's computed. 820 is what Michaela comes up with, is the optimal mix. So what Michaela did, we're gonna do the Tahoes first, right? There are no other sales constraints. It takes 3 hours to make one Tahoe, and Michaela's right. We can make 820 Tahoes, and the mix is 0 Renos. So the author may ask for both quantity levels, in this case 820 and 0. Now be careful on your problems, exams, questions. Remember, this might be one machine. I think there is a exercise or problem in the homework where there's, is it 7 machines? So then you gotta take the hours per machine times 7. So watch the number or quantity level of machines in this particular case, for this, on this problem. Going on to question 3 then, what is the margin for the company at the optimal level? Now they're not asking for margin per unit, right? What does it say here? What is the margin in total? Total dollars. Doesn't say anything about per unit, per hour, right? So using the mix that we have, Tahoes and Renos, what do I multiply the 820 by?
75.
The 75. How come not the 25, Liz?
Because we already figured out 820 is the amount of Tahoes that you're going to be making, so that already includes the 3 hours. So you'd be making 820, so the 3 hours is included in the unit.
Yes, we're looking at units here, and I want a unit number here. You're right. I think you're trying to get to that point. That's exactly what I want to make sure of. Because a lot of students want to put in 25 here instead of 75. But what is the 25? It's per hour. This is what I want you to be careful of on the exam, is that you don't accidentally grab the wrong margin. It's, if you're multiplying by units, you got to multiply by margin per unit. And Carla, how much is this?
61.5.
61.5? So that should be our answer then. So much to watch and be careful of, right? This is another exam where students think before they hit the submit button, they've done a pretty good job. But it's little errors like this that really can add up quickly if you're not careful. Okay. Multiple constraints. With our examples so far today, it's basically been sales or hours, right, are our constraints. But you could certainly have other limitations like labor, demand, raw materials. Multiple constraints. Well, we can do it simply because there's only like 1 or 2. But if you get beyond 2, the author says, let me just get to that point. How do you solve for multiple constraints? Page 420 of our book. Because you might see this in the near future. What does it say to use to solve for multiple constraints? On page 420.
Is the linear programming?
Yeah, linear programming. You'll need to know that. So many times students miss this one, and it's right in the book. So be aware that linear programming, all that means is it's looking at all the variables and then finding the best fit, considering all aspects. And really, you can only do that with a computer. So that's what they're using here, is a computer program specifically designed to take in all those constraints and problem solve the answer via computer. Okay, cool. Let's do one more of these constraints. 865, sorry, excuse me. So often we use hours as our constraint, but with problem 65, pounds of material is the constraint in this particular problem. And as we go through this, it's looking at, they have 16,000 pounds available to make their 2 products, Hera and Juno. They were thinking they were going to get more, but it doesn't happen. The 8,000 pounds never came in. So now we have 16. We want to make all these units, the 2,000 of Juno and 4,000 of Hera. And it's also assuming that all units produced can be sold in the first question. they ask us what is the margin, and then what is the margin per pound in question 2. So question 1, what is the margin per unit? Oh, what is the margin in total? I just got done talking about whether it's a total number or per unit, and I messed up already. What is the margin currently if they make and sell 2,000 and 4,000?
$30 for Juno and $60 for Hera. What's the total?
Times 30, Liz,
Yeah.
with a Juno.
Yep.
Kara, I'm gonna take 4,000 times what?
60.
Doing my math right here. I think I am, right?
Yep.
So my answer is 300,000. I hear a lot of. Awesome, thank you, Michaela. Cool, we did do it right, 300,000. Now we get to our margin per pound. So look at how it changed, or how the question changed. So we were talking in total at the question 1. Question 2 says now per pound. So we take our margin, we'll start with Juno. And what do? Divide by how many pounds does it take to make Juno? I think it says 2. Juno uses 2 pounds. So that's a margin per pound of 15. Hera, the margin per unit is 60, but how many pounds does it take?
5.
The 5. That should be 14. So Olivia,
12.
oh, it's 12? Oh yeah, you're right. Which one do I make first?
Juno.
Yes. So I'm going to put an asterisk here. If we're going to run short anyway, let's make the product that's going to give us the most money per pound, right? So we certainly would be using this, or making the Juno first. Are we good so far? So question 2 then says, assume a sales constraint of 2 and 4 and the material constraint. So now we have 2 constraints here to deal with. This will be a lot like your exam, what's going to happen here. So let's look at Juno. I'm going to make it first, right? So remember, I have in total 16,000 pounds of material. That's all I have to work with. It could be hours, doesn't matter, right? So how many pounds am I going to use up making Junos? How many pounds of the 16 am I going to use?
4,000.
4. Very good, Liz. How did you get that?
The 2,000 times the 2. Pounds per unit.
Yeah, Juno uses 2 pounds. I'm going to multiply by the sales constraint of 2. So I can't make all of Juno because I can't sell them all anyway. I can only sell 2 in our year. So I'm gonna use up 4,000 pounds of material. Which leaves us what for Hera? Hera has 12,000 pounds left. So how many units are we looking at here? You're going to divide by what?
5.
5 pounds. Five times 3 is 15.
2,400.
2,400. I know it says I can sell 4,000 units of Heras, but I'm out of material. Can't sell something I can't make, right? So now the new unit goes from 4 down to 2, 2,400. Can't use the 4, right? So what is the optimal mix at both a sales constraint and a material constraint? We're looking at the mix of being 2,000 of Junos, 2,400 of Heras. That's the optimal mix. So this is what you'll see on your test. Both a sales constraint probably and a material or hour constraint. To finish up the problem, we want what now? The total margin, right? And Michaela says it's 204?
184,000.
Oh, is that 204 something else? Michaela's typing. Michaela's still typing. 2,000 times 30,
60,000.
which is 60.
2,400 times 60 is 144,000.
Oh, got it.
Oh, I added wrong. My bad.
So it's 204.
204.
Cool. Excellent, Michaela. That's right. Perfect. Good.
Sorry, it's baby brain over here.
No, that's fine. We have lots of auditors here. 2,000 times 30 is 60,000. 2,400 Heras times 60 is 144,000. Gives us a total margin of $204,000. Juno and Heras. So contribution margin, margin per unit, margin per hour, margin per pound. Kind of watch for those definitions, and again, be sure that we understand which is, or what they're looking for in reality here. Okay, any other thoughts with this problem? I get paid by the question, just throwing it out there again. You good? Okay. I have to ask this question. What account, this might be an interview question in the future. I just asked my automated class, where or what account is used to record sales on account?
Sales on account,
Sales on account,
accounts receivable.
accounts receivable. Okay, good. Everybody agree? Good. Just checking. That was my accounting question for the day. Just making sure. Vendors would be what?
Accounts payable.
Accounts payable, thank you. A couple other small little computations. Cost-based pricing, which is on page 421. Example 9. And basically, it's a simple markup. And you've done markups on cost a lot of times. In this case, can I have you look at the answer? So we have a cost here of 69. We mark it up. What's 0.2 mean as a percent? 20%. We add the markup to the cost and we sell it for $82,800. Does that look good? What's a quicker way to get the 82.8 rather than doing the addition here?
Cost divided by 5%?
No, that's a different kind of markup, Liz. Some people do it that way, but that's a different markup. What do we multiply the 69 to get the 82?
Was it the 120?
1 point.
1.20?
1.2. Very good, Carla. So I would like on this problem if you would do it quicker and just simply, or at least double check yourself to make sure that the markup computation is correct. So 1 is obviously the cost. The 0.2 is the markup, right? And that's what we're looking for here. I do have one more question. The computation is easy. How does a company come up with this markup? How does a company determine this percentage? What did they use? Let's say your boss asks you, I've got this thing that we can buy from China for $5. What do we sell it for? How would you answer that question?
How much money do you want to make off of it?
How much do you want to make off of it? Right. But can we make it whatever we want?
No.
What's limiting us?
The market?
The market, exactly. So what would you do? You'd find out what your competitors are selling it for, right? Would be ideal if you can figure that out. But what else do you have to do? Yeah, how much profit that we're going to make on that unit, right? So, is 20% enough to make money at it? You'd have to look at your other products and maybe it is. Maybe you can make a profit at 20%. What comes after the 20%? What expenses?
You mean after it's in place?
This 20% is what? What do we call this 20%? The margin, right? The gross margin on our income statement. What expenses come after?
Salaries?
Salaries or selling expenses, right?
Mm-hmm.
And admin. So you really need to know what that percentage is, right? What is that percentage? And does the 20% cover it? In some cases it does. In other cases, for some industries, it won't. Depends on what industry you're in. Depends on how big this percentage is. But what's another factor when you come up with this percentage? Not only the big question is, how many will you sell? This is probably more important to know than that percentage. If I have something that sells for $10 and I only sell one of those and my markup is 20%, I'm making 20 cents. Well, that ain't gonna cover much. But if I sell something for $10 and I sell 1 million of those and I multiply by 20%, now what am I making? 2 million, right? I'm assuming somebody's watching my math here. Do you see the difference? Walmart has a very low
Would
margin.
it be 200,000? Oh, is it, never mind.
$10,
It's two,
not
yeah,
one.
the 10.
So Walmart has a very low percentage, but they can get away with it because they have what? A large sales volume, right? I did a budget one time for a restaurant, and they had some good margins, 50, 100% margins, but they didn't make it because they didn't sell enough, right? That's the key. You can have great margins and have a great budget, but if you don't sell, you're still not going to make it. So I just kind of want to address that. As a manager, you may be asked to come up with this markup percentage. And you really have to analyze not only that percentage, but how many are you going to sell. There's a quick problem, 49. It'll take us 2 minutes to do here. I do have a couple test questions on this, so just, again, I want to make sure we understand this. What price will the gift shop charge for their card game selling price? For the card game, and then what are they going to charge for the animal game? Here's our cost, 20 and 40. So what do I multiply this by? Yeah, 1.65. What'd you get for the first one, Carl?
33.
Allison, are you following along? Or? How about McDonald here, the animal game? 66. Guys, are we okay with those? Yeah, okay. And then what challenges do you see with the cost plus markup? I think the biggest one is out. Number 2 is what we talked about earlier, the selling and admin expenses that we have after the margin, right? That we don't know either. Because again, it's great to have a 65% markup. Doesn't mean it's enough, right? So that's the big kicker here. And then number 3, what will the market bear? I see nobody's bought a $2,000 flip phone that folds, the foldable phone. Is that too much for our market, right? So that's another big question. The last little computation at the end here is something called target costing. It's used in the R&D, research and development of new products. In some cases, a company has a great product, it's awesome, ideal, but they can't make it cheap enough for the market. The market's not willing to pay a lot of money for it. And that's really what this is looking at, is if there's a selling price out there that is doable, what cost do we have to get it to make our markup? So this is on page 422. The exercise or example is number 10. It's really a simple computation. So the target price is $200. The market will be willing to pay it. So this is the selling price is $200. They desire a 15% profit. What is the cost that we should be or need to make it at in order to make 15%? So basically, you take that 15% of 200, which is 30, and you subtract it, right, to get a target cost. Now this cost is the materials plus direct labor plus the applied overhead. Can we get those dollars, some of those 3 at or below 170? That's the target cost. If we can't make it for that, then we don't do the project. It would be foolish for us to do it. So that's the question here is it actually economically feasible to do it? And we have one problem here, problem 50. Same page. We're making toasters. Calculate the desired profit on the new toaster. Sales price is $60. It's already above what I want to pay for a toaster. Unless it's a 4 one. Times what? What's the percentage of profit? 20%? Which is what?
12.
12. So the answer to question 1, what is the profit? $12 on a $60 item. So the target cost has to be what? $48, right? 48 is our target cost then. I'm going to stop here, guys, and let's take a break. Joint process product A and B, we already did this on Tuesday. And to decide whether to process further, this is the question. And you might get this in a multiple choice question. The incremental revenue has to be greater than the incremental costs. So in this case, product A, the incremental revenue was 2, which is the difference between the 4 and the 2 versus the cost. For product B, the incremental revenue was only 50 cents, which is less than the additional cost, which was $1. So in that case, we do not process further. So incremental revenue, know what that means, versus incremental cost, know what that means. And really, these costs, the incremental revenue and incremental cost, occur after split-off point. Is the key here. After split-off point. So a joint cost, remember, is before split off. And irrelevant. Here's that term again. L, right? Joint cost is irrelevant. It's before the split off. In our decision to process further or not process further. There is a small computation at the end. It says determine the income if both products were sold beyond split off, which is not the optimal. We already said B should be sold at split off. But what I do want to be aware of, we have product A and product B. We're selling them both beyond the split off point. So we would use 4 and we would use, for the selling price now, $2.50. That's our total sales. And we multiply that by 5,000 of A and 2,000 of B. Sometimes students want to use the selling price at split off. So in revenue terms, we're making 25,000. We subtract the joint cost, because that's still part of our income, of 12 of the joint cost. And we got to subtract off the incremental cost, which are both at $1. So 2 total, right, times how many pounds? 7? 14,000? Am I doing that? Oh no, that would not be right. 1 times 7,000. I doubled up on this. Sorry, guys. The incremental cost was actually $1 for both products. So if I take $1 times 7,000, I get $7,000. So I should end up with 6,000 as my profit. So make sure you're using the selling price after split off in this case. don't forget, we have two costs to come up with our income for the period. And that's 6. Well, the joint costs are considered as well as the incremental costs. So that just finishes up that particular problem. Please be ready for this one, guys, to drop or not a segment. Again, if it's a common cost, it stays, right? Or sometimes they call this corporate, and Allison's right, sometimes we call this irrelevant. So multiple terms can mean the same thing, so just remember that. So in this case, we're losing the segment margin if we drop Brothers, which would bring our total income down 1,000. Our new income will be 0 at that point. So that too we covered on Tuesday. I just wanted to keep it here, be ready for this type of question. All right, our final wrap up here. Looking at the word relevant again, check all that apply. Of the 1, 2, 3, 4 items, all expenses, which one is relevant or which ones are relevant? This here could also be a good multiple choice question. Which ones are relevant? I think there's only one.
What if you lost one?
The last one. The last one is the only relevant. Why is depreciation not relevant? This is always what? A sunk cost. Depreciation is always a sunk and therefore irrelevant. All right, part 2. We're looking at a day spa. How nice, wouldn't that be nice right now? They currently do $40,000 in a year, and they, on average, 25% accept the offer and receive the massage, so we're looking at 10,000 units. However, a small startup venture is nearby, and they're willing to sell their service for $100 per massage. So we're looking at outsourcing here, or do we keep it in-house? So they put up some cost numbers, both total and unit. 1.53 million is what we're estimating to be the cost with in-house, and therefore you divide by 10,000 units, you get $153. And looking at it right on the surface, they're charging 100. We in-house have it at 153. On the surface, it looks like we should be outsourcing it, right? It's much cheaper to do that. So we got to look at what costs, though, are relevant in this decision. So if you turn to the next page, or no, I don't. Oh, yes, turn to the next page. I just didn't go far enough. What alternatives need to be considered for this massage decision? What could we do? Continue as is. Can we do that? A combination of both? Or do it all externally? We're just looking at the alternatives. not whether it's relevant or not. And I would say you could do all three, right? All three are possible choices for us. Let's look at the relevant cost then. We know the purchase cost was 100. Looks at this point to be what? Just the variable ones are the relevant. And the fixed are all irrelevant. So looking at our costs, it was 8 for material, right?
Yeah.
8, 90, and 5. So it's a differential of 3, right? So what should we do? Buy or do it? We should what? Buy it, right? It's cheaper. Pretty simple. Pretty much, that's pretty straightforward. Keep or drop is our last problem here. Looking at our totals, I just put these underlines in here. But looking at our 3 segments, which segment's in trouble? Or looks like they're in trouble. Oahu, right? So this division is in trouble. Something's going on here, right? But we gotta look at how this looks. The question is, first, what are the alternatives again for Oahu? Can I say that, Oahu? Something like that. We could increase the amount of sales. We could keep the market, reduce the amount of sales, or drop Oahu, no longer sell in this market. So what should we do? Well, this would help, right? Increase our sales. We could get rid of it. That might be a choice. Drop it entirely. Would reducing the sales help? I wouldn't think so. Keep the Oahu market? At this point, I wouldn't think so, because it doesn't look good right now. So I would keep that off too. So what's relevant?
The first 2 for sure.
Yep. And really, these are what we look at as one number called margin, right? Yep. So those 2 for sure. Depreciation? Never. This is sunk. Never look at that one as being relevant. Promotional, which is basically advertising. What does it say about advertising? Back in the problem. I even underlined it. Advertising is what? Relevant. So in other words, if I drop this segment, I'm not spending the money on advertising for it. Why would I, right? So that certainly is considered relevant. So we have 3 in this case that are considered relevant. Both the sales and variable costs, which is called margin, and then the advertising at the very end. That fixed cost is also relevant. So you can see here that we have those in play. But I like to do pluses and minuses. It just seems simpler. So my first minus is our lost contribution margin, which is equal to how much? From our table, from our segmented income statement.
200,000.
200. So I'm losing that. But what am I gaining? What's my big plus here?
The
I'm not-
advertising,
I'm not spending the money on advertising.
which is 225,000.
I think that's it, right? That's the only relative ones. We only had 3. 2 are built in that margin. So,
25,000.
oops. So if I drop it, I'm going to do what?
The increase by 25,000.
I'm going to increase my overall income. So the best answer is to drop it. Because my income, my overall income for the company will go up if I do drop it. I think doing it this way, it's a much quicker way to analyze it to get that change in income. And that's really what you're going to be tackling with the exam on that particular question. Wow, I think that's it. That's all I got. We went through a lot of problems today, a lot of different scenarios. Just be careful with the wording. And like I said, I will be here on Tuesday. If you take it at home during the class period, certainly I will be answering emails. If you do want to do it that way, you can certainly do it that way on Tuesday. Let me know if you have any questions on the 25-point problem or any others that you might come across as you're doing your homework assignments as well.
I was a bit annoyed with the 25-point problem.
It does take a while to get it, but once you have it, it's not.
The length was fine, but when you had to do your calculations or whatever for that,
Yes.
to get that percentage,
Yes.
for the first one, it gives you like, you have your answer and then it's a number point whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, don't drop that point whatever to get the final answer.
Yes, you cannot. It's got to
Yeah,
go
I
at
figured.
least 4 digits. Yep, the ratio, the margin ratio is 4 digits
Oh,
long.
no, I'm saying after that.
Yes, you cannot drop it after that either.
Yeah.
Correct. To get your total change in income.
Yeah.
Very good. Eric, Michaela, any other questions? All right, that's it for today. I'm going to stop my recording and have a good weekend.